In the shadowed corners of ancient battlefields, history keeps secrets. Not myths, not stories spun to frighten children around the fire. Real instruments of war so strange, so efficient, and so terrifying that their makers hid them, sealed their workshops, and took the knowledge to their graves. Tonight we uncover 7 of those forbidden arms, weapons that bent the rules of metallurgy, weathered the elements, and reshaped the fate of empires. Some were born from genius, some from desperation, and a few from darker impulses. Each was real, each changed history, and each was buried for a reason. The Khopesh sickle of the pharaohs. Long before the rise of modern blades, Egyptian craftsmen cast a weapon shaped like the moon itself. Curved along its outer edge, with a hooked tip that could catch and tear, the Khopesh was at once sword, sickle, and spear. In the hands of a trained warrior, it could slash through leather, pull down shields, and deliver lethal thrusts that seemed to come from nowhere. Why this shape? Because it worked. The outer curve concentrated force into a slicing edge, while the hook tore through defenses, allowing a single strike to perform 3 deadly functions. For the pharaohs, the Khopesh was not merely military gear. It was a symbol of divine authority, an emblem of gods and kings entwined. Greek fire, the flame that wouldn't die. The sea can swallow men and wood, but in 678, approaching Constantinople, Arab fleets met a conflagration that refused to die. The Byzantines unleashed Greek fire, a jet of burning liquid spat from bronze tubes that clung to ships and men, a fire that water could not quench. What was it made of? That's the secret the Byzantines guarded like state treasure. Accounts describe resin, sulfur, quicklime, and oils ingredients dangerous enough to be locked behind imperial decrees. Modern chemists have recreated formulas that burn on water, but the exact recipe and delivery system remain debated. The terror was both physical and psychological. Watching your ship burn as flames crawled across the sea was enough to shatter any formation. The secret was jealously held. When the empire crumbled, so too did the full knowledge of Greek fire. The Rama, giant's blade polearms of dread. On windswept ridges and in the shadow of mountain forges, some cultures forged blades larger than men, massive steel edges mounted on towering poles. Romans and others called them ramphei, but in local tongues they were instruments of battlefield dominance. How do you make a blade so large it doesn't snap? The secret lay in advanced forging, differential hardening, layered tempering, and careful balance. These smiths understood how to marry strength and flexibility, producing polearms that could cleave shields, shatter ranks, and dominate cavalry. When conquering forces arrived, they found forges cold and silent. Mastersmiths often died with their secrets, either by choice or by design, leaving behind ruins and unanswered questions about techniques that wouldn't be seen for centuries. The Chakram spinning disc of the temple warriors. From the temples of ancient India came a weapon simple in form but lethal in practice. The Chakram. A flat, sharpened disc that could be hurled with uncanny accuracy, it sliced through flesh and, sometimes, legend claims, returned to the thrower. Training to master the Chakram was grueling. Warriors learned to launch discs in arcing patterns, combining timing, rotation, and deception. The most skilled could release sequences that seemed to surround and trap opponents. Some accounts go further, stories of chakrams changing direction mid-flight, striking multiple foes, even following targets around cover. The British colonial authorities, alarmed by the weapon's effectiveness and the secrecy of its manuals, banned its practice and ordered many manuscripts destroyed. What survived is tantalizing but incomplete. The BN whipsword of the East. In China, a blade could appear to come alive. The BN, sometimes called the whipsword, was composed of interlinked segments that let a solid steel edge bend and snap like a living serpent. Unleashed, it could reach around shields, strike at odd angles, and transform from rigid weapon to whipping lash in a heartbeat. Crafting the BN demanded meticulous engineering, joints that locked under pressure but flexed when allowed, metallurgy tuned to prevent catastrophic failure. For warriors, the weapon's rewards were as great as its dangers. One misalignment could send the blade whirling back against its wielder. Guilds of master smiths guarded the designs, teaching them only to trusted students. Many examples, considered too perilous to survive into the hands of enemies or novices, were intentionally buried. Flaming war elephants, living engines of panic. Imagine a battlefield where the ground trembles beneath the feet of giants. War elephants were already terrifying. Engineers made them worse. Bronze sheaths fitted to tusks, drenched in fuel and set alight, turned these beasts into walking torches. Horses panicked, formations broke, and commanders watched their lines dissolve like paper. Building such a weapon required more than armor and fire. The animals had to be conditioned to tolerate flames, noise, and chaos. Preparations were brutal. Training regimens, restraining techniques, and psychological conditioning designed to force charging behavior. The combination beast, fire, and human cruelty produced a weapon as effective as it was horrifying. Meteoric iron blades steal from the stars. Of all forbidden arms, the most mystifying are those forged from meteoric iron. Across cultures from Egypt to Scandinavia, smiths prized celestial metal. Meteoric iron contains nickel and distinctive crystalline patterns, and blades made from it were often sharper, tougher, and said to carry mystical properties. Archaeology complicates the story. Working meteoric iron demands high temperatures and refined techniques. Yet we find blades whose microstructures suggest careful control, layered folds, consistent grain orientation, even isotopic markers implying advanced thermal management. Some blades show evidence that parts of their work had been done before they reached Earth, or so some analysts claim, though that interpretation remains controversial. What we can say for certain is this: ancient smiths achieved results that surprise modern metallurgists. They developed furnace designs, cooling chambers, and forging sequences that pushed the limits of what their tools should have allowed. Workshops with unusual layouts and sealed chambers hinted both pride in craft and a desire to hide it. These 7 weapons are more than curiosities. They are windows into minds that solved problems we assumed belonged only to later ages. They show craftsmanship, cruelty, daring, and secrecy. Some technologies were tactical innovations, ways to break a line or rout a fleet. Others had ritual weight, binding warriors to gods and kings. And in many cases, the makers chose to close their books and bury their tools, either to protect their communities or to spare the world a knowledge they feared. We may never reconstruct every secret, and some claims remain the province of legend. But the archaeological traces are real. Blades, forges, texts, and ruins that demand explanation. The more we dig, the more complicated our story of the past becomes. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadowed arsenal of history, subscribe for deeper dives into ancient technology and mystery. Share which weapon you found most chilling in the comments, and tell us which buried secret you want unearthed next.